You guys have needs. I have the strengths of the draft class to fill those needs for you guys. We're going to be looking at in this block which position groups in the 2025 NFL draft have the most talent that I would say in my decade of doing NFL draft analysis are strong year on year classes in certain position groups versus weak year on year classes in position groups. So we'll start with the ones that are loaded here. To me, there's three position groups in this draft class that I would qualify as very good year on year classes. They are defensive end, running back, tight end. As it stands right now, in my top 50, 10 of them are defensive ends. It is a very, very good year. There may not be, after Abdul Carter, any other surefire studs in this draft class. But in my opinion, there are so many guys who have, will be mid to late first rounders. There are even more guys into the second and third rounds that could still legitimately make an impact at the next level. That this class, if you need a pass rusher off the edge, just draft one. I think this is the year. Just take one. You'll probably get good value because there's just too many of them to go all so early. After that, it's running back. Running back, to me, Ashton Jeanty, everyone knows about. Not a lot of people know about the RB2, RB3, RB4s in this draft class, but it's a very good class. I only have two in my top 50. Now, that's because my top 50 has a lot of positional value baked into it. But in my top 100, there's almost 10 guys now in my top 100 at the running back position. That's a lot year on year. You don't see 10 top 100 picks at running back most years, especially with the devaluation of the running back position. But I think we might see that turn around a little bit. So this is a very good year if you need a running back. What there should be, I think, your third round in this draft class, there should be really, really good value in this running back class. I fully expect there to be a ton of guys coming off the board in that round. And then finally, tight end. To me, if there's any one position group that would be the best year on year, I think it's tight end. This class is stacked. I could see as many as 7 guys in this tight end class being starters within their first 2 years in the NFL. I have 5 tight ends right now in my top 50. That never happens. 2 guys with first round grades in Tyler Warren and Colson Loveland. So there is not only depth, there's top end talent. There really is anything you want in this tight end class. There's big inline blockers. There's guys who are undersized, hybrid sort of players. It's a great year to need a tight end. All right, on to the next tier. The classes I would call, the position groups I'd call good classes. Not great, but good probably year on year. Defensive tackle and offensive tackle. I have 7 defensive tackles right now in my top 50. It's a very, very good defensive line class. So whether it's on the edge or on the interior, there's likely someone who's going to fill that need. And offensive tackle, while it's not top heavy, I only have 5 offensive tackles in my top 50. Only 2 guys who I'd really say are like day one type of stars at offensive tackle, and Kelvin Banks from Texas, Will Campbell from LSU. But after that, there's so much depth in this offensive tackle class. I think we'll see a ton of guys come off the board in the second and third round in this offensive tackle class that make it one of the better position groups in this draft class. Like I said, doesn't have the top end talent, but it really has depth in terms of developmental depth that you're not starting some of these guys year one the way you were last year when we saw, a record number of offensive tackles come off the board in the first round. But if you need to just add depth to your unit and hopefully have a guy who can start by the end of his rookie season, rookie contract, this is going to be the year for you. All right, now to what I'd call the okay classes. That these are just pretty much mediocre standard classes. There's talent to be had, but basically you're going to have to go search for it. They're quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback, safety, and linebacker. 3 quarterbacks in my top 50, 5 wide receivers in my top 50. While there's 7 cornerbacks in my top 50, which is a lot, but none of them, outside of, depends on what you call Travis Hunter, and then Will Johnson out of Michigan. After that, there's no guy I really have a first round grade on in this cornerback class. It's just, there's a big drop off in my opinion, the way there really wasn't last year, where there was a good tier of guys who could be first rounders. This year, I don't see that. So there's a lot of day 2 cornerbacks, but that just makes it an okay class when there's not a lot of day 1 cornerbacks, in my opinion. Safety, I have 3 guys in my top 100. Linebacker, I have 1 guy in my top 100 as it stands right now. So those 2 classes, safety and linebacker, obviously they're devalued by nature of the positions. They don't usually go in the first round. I think we do see in the safety class in particular, at least one in Malachi Starks out of Georgia, maybe two in Nick and Manwari out of South Carolina. So there's some top end talent, some depth, nothing special though, in my opinion. Linebacker, there's not the top end talent. Jihad Campbell out of Alabama, probably your only guy potentially going in the first round. After him, there's a large tier of day two linebackers. There's a lot of nice undersized guys in this draft class. If you need that weak side linebacker, I think it's actually a fairly strong class, but not necessarily true Mike linebackers in this draft class. You either have weak side linebackers or these like off ball edge hybrids that can rush the passer. There's a little bit of both those, but not any true do it all middle linebacker. So that's why I say it's just an okay class. And the one class that I would call a bad class year on year is interior offensive line. I only have two guys in my top 50 who are interior offensive linemen. Last year, I believe I had 8. Last year was stacked with interior offensive linemen. This year, they're going to be few and far between. They're going to be difficult to find. Tyler Booker out of Alabama is my top ranked interior offensive lineman. Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State is my second ranked interior offensive lineman, even though he played offensive tackle at North Dakota State. After that, I'm not sure there's a lot of guys I love to be starting on the interior early on in their careers. There's not a single center that I'm going to have in my top 100 right now. So it's not a great year to need that position specifically. But I think your best bet is there's some of these tackles that are maybe tweeners in terms of do they play tackle? Do they play in the interior? Guys like Armand Membu out of Missouri, guys like Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. I think your best bet in this interior offensive line class is a tackle convert. There's just not a lot of guys who are pure interior offensive linemen that I would go to bat for and say, yeah, I think they're going to be starters for you. So a far cry from a year ago. So to recap a little bit, defensive end, running back, tight end, those are your elite classes. Your good classes, DTOT. So line of scrimmage, especially the defensive line of scrimmage, that's where you probably want to be putting your resources in this draft early on. After that, the passing positions, quarterback, wide receiver, cornerback, meh classes, nowhere near what we saw a year ago. They're just okay classes in that regard. And then the one class where maybe this isn't the year to find it, interior offensive line.